Okay, we're rolling. So welcome everybody to the July DSC Community Conference Call. Our agenda for today, we're going to go through the list of resources that have been updated or new resources that are coming out in the next wave. And then we'll also just open the floor for anybody who has general discussion, and then we'll close with any requests for new resources or the handoff of resource questions, issues, things like that to maintainers that need escalation. So why don't we start off, Katie and Johan, if you want to walk us through the new list. And I believe everything is in GitHub this month in the community call agenda.
Yep. So we currently have 12 modules on track for release. That's next Wednesday, July 25th. They are computer management, security policy, SharePoint, SQL Server, Active Directory. DHCP server has a breaking change. DSC Resource Designer, Exchange, PowerShell execution policy, remote desktop session host, web administration, and XPS desired state configuration.
That's a pretty awesome list.
Yeah, and X PowerShell execution policy is actually getting deprecated since it's now in computer management, DSC.
Pull up the file. So June and July combined, we actually have a high number of changes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share my desktop just so in the recording people can see the list. And I think that covers everything. So computer management DSC becoming an HQRM, did that happen last month or this month? Or has it been HQRM for a while?
I think it's been for a while. It's a couple of months, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think.
And then
we don't tie the naming to HQRM anymore, but yeah.
Got it. I'll pull up that file in a minute. And then I think the same for SQL Server DSC, correct? That's not new for this month, correct? That's been
no.
A couple of months?
No.
But HQRM isn't tied to the naming anymore, so.
Right. I think HQRM is, but not support. So the level of quality is expressed by the naming convention, but not support.
No, the naming convention is just not tied to anything anymore.
Okay, we should make sure the docs communicate that.
Yeah.
And then for XDSC Resource Designer, what were the major changes there? Anybody happen to know?
It was a small change. I don't remember what it was.
It says fixes issue number 73, multiple classes in schema where last class doesn't match schema name.
Ah, okay.
That was the name of the PR.
Right. Exactly. It was an issue where if you had multiple class names in a schema MOF, and if you put them in the wrong order, it failed to the test framework failed to test the resources if they were in the wrong order.
Got it. Makes sense.
Now it doesn't matter which order. So, yep.
Johan, I know you've had deep, detailed level of information looking at the changes for this month. Is there anything you'd like to discuss in more depth or call out to people's attention?
No, not really. It's a PowerShell execution policy there is moving to computer management DSC. It's last release we released a couple of changes for people that are actually using it in their configuration, so they don't need to move to computer management DSC today.
Okay.
So this time it's actually just being deprecated, but it will not be updated anymore. So they should move over to computer management DSC instead.
Okay. And then one thing that would be really awesome to have you discuss in more detail, I know this isn't, in the call we normally go through DSC Resources, but you were able to publish a really high number of DSC configurations to the gallery, I think 2 weeks ago. Do you want to talk a little bit about that exercise? I'll pull up the list.
Yeah, it was... I had to start by changing the example for everyone to know that we published the examples in XPC design state configuration to the gallery. That resource model hasn't got any love for a long time, so I had to fix all the examples first, so they could pass the common test in the test framework. After that, we updated the test framework to be able to publish the examples, and that is done through a new deploy step. You change the AppWire YAML file to add a deploy step, and that will publish the example. So every resource, not just the DSC resource kit, the resource modules, but any resource module using the test framework can do this now. People that are using the test framework outside of DSC resource kit must use their own API key in the AppWire YAML. But basically, it was quite a job making the changes, because I had to actually change the way the examples not work, but trim them a little bit for them to actually be able to be used easier in Azure Automation. But, for example, I had to add the parameters to each example, so you can fill in the parameters in Azure Automation instead of pushing the change, just compiling a ready resource configuration. So, but I think it's because, as I said, that resource model haven't been updated for a while. So I think other resource models like computer management, DSC, and so they are closer to be able to release their examples. And I know Daniel's looking to release his resource eventually here. So so we're gonna see more.
Yeah, that was awesome stuff. Yeah, and I'm the harness modules needed a little bit of changing. So as part of this, we actually moving the ones like networking DSC that are based on that harness framework where everything's in a subfolder. We're moving away from that and basically putting everything back into the flat folder structure. That'll make it easier to release, and it will also hopefully let us use a single code path instead of the multiple code paths we've currently got. But as part of that, I'll make sure all those examples also use your awesome new code and get pushed out to the gallery.
Yeah, and for people that doesn't know, there's two models in the test framework currently. It's we call it the default shared model and the harness model. And the harness model is used by SharePoint DSC and Daniel resources. Or not Daniel's resources, the resource modules that Daniel's are a maintainer for.
That's right.
So if I'm an author of a new module and I'm keeping the module in my own GitHub account in a repo that I maintain, it looks like I can just go to the AppVeyor file that we're using in the DSC Resources repo, take the things that I like out of that, and that will actually hook up my repo to using and benefiting from this module, which is stored in the DSC resource.tests repo. And looking at this function, it looks like it's just an opt-in where I can have it automatically publish any examples that I include in my module to the gallery as scripts in addition to publishing my DSC resources. Did I get that right? Yeah.
So it's a couple of prerequisites that need to be updated on the examples. This is documented in the DSC resource test README. But basically, it's just take the default AppWire YAML file, and that will hook up to the default shared model. And just to continue while Michael browse here, the different the different models have different features, and that's why we're trying to join these together so we can get all the features in one model. But it's going to take a while. It's a slow process, but eventually we might come there.
So if I maintain an existing module, actually I do, and I want to solve this for myself, what's the best place, like which section of the README should I go to better understand how to publish my examples?
The deploy step, yeah, right here, deploy step.
I'm going to put this in the IM window if anybody would like to take a look. Because I'll do this for update services DSC.
And here you have the requirements.
Yep. Previously, I published a separate configuration. It would be much more convenient for me as a maintainer to keep this all in one repo. So this would be really great.
Yep.
Okay. From anybody on the call, is there anything that you have questions about DSC resources or configurations that were published this month that you'd like to dig into more detail or discuss how you can do something similar, or have questions about resources that you're using and how they may have changed? No? Okay, sounds good. So then I'll open the floor for general discussion. If anybody has questions about DSC, how DSC works, what's going on with anything in the community, any forum post discussions, anything like that, Twitter discussions, I'm happy to, the floor is open to anybody who'd like to talk.
Daniel, are you expecting anything else from me?
No, it's in my commit. Sorry, Leo, that is totally in my court. I will. I'm aiming to get that and a couple of other PRs through this weekend. Get that review completed. Sorry about the delay. Yeah.
No worries at all. I just didn't want everyone thinking or kind of getting wires crossed and just kind of delaying it because you're waiting for me, etc.
Absolutely not. You know, you've done awesome. Just to even know, Leo's moving X language. Well, all the X language resources into computer management as well. So we're just going through the PR review process on that one.
Do we have anything in the README for computer management to give people some guidance as to when they should consider submitting a resource for that module as opposed to creating their own?
I don't think there is anything specifically in guidance, but we could definitely put something in. Because X lang. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Sort of computer management has sort of become a bit of a loading ground for anything that really doesn't fit anywhere else and is really computer specific. You might only have one of on a particular computer.
I think it's the right direction. I was just kind of thinking maybe if we just even have one paragraph with the rule of thumb, that would help people.
Let me put that in.
Intent. Great.
Cool. Thank you. And there was one other thing that Johan and I were talking about to make, because I said we're moving away from this, or trying to move these resource modules away from the harness method. And the reason why I think that was originally put in place was because SharePoint DSC didn't want to publish the test folders into the PowerShell gallery. So as a way to move around that, they sort of moved everything into a staging folder or staging structure. Now, one of the ways we thought that we could possibly allow SharePoint DSC to move away from the hardest model, so meaning I don't have to support those two models in DSC resource test, was to be able to somehow control the process of the publish. So just determine what folders actually get published in the package to the gallery on a resource by resource basis. So this is just something Johan and I were knocking around. I remember Katie wrote a list of the steps that happen when the publish occurs. I can't find those anywhere, and I think good old GitHub search.
I can post them again.
Yeah, if you could, that would be awesome. I mean,
in like an actual document.
Is it a possibility to have some way to affect what just the core folders that get published? So some sort of an options file that the publish process looks at and says, oh, I'm going to publish these folders, or not that. I'm going to exclude the test folder or not. Because that might mean SharePoint can move away from that harness model. Not that they, that they may have other requirements, so it might not happen, but it'd be nice to not have to support those two code paths, because I know that's quite a testing overhead. And we've had a few changes where the change to DSC resource tests works fine for standard normal modules, but the harness modules doesn't work the same way, and it's probably quite an overhead for Johan keeping that all those things in line.
Well, I think the release scripts look for the module manifest and then publish based on what folder that's in.
Yeah, so that means it publishes any subfolder, which of course
under that module manifest.
And I think that's why SharePoint DSC they moved the manifest and everything else into a subfolder, so that the tests were above that and didn't get published.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, well, if you do have a document, that would be awesome. We could start from there.
Yeah, I can post something on that, and then we can look at it.
I'm only seeing one outstanding PR, and it's to me, so sorry about that. I will act on that. I think I know what you do. And then for issues, Johan, I'll give you a chance to speak to these because most of them look like they're tagged help wanted, which means anybody in the community could jump in, if I understand correctly, and help out with these.
Exactly. So in this, there was 35 issues or something here. It's a totally like around 800 issues in all the DSC resource kit, 38 issues here. So those that are marked help wanted, anyone can take it. Most of these are documentation. So
so a lot of these help wanted, you don't have to be a DSC expert. You could probably just get in the documentation and submit PRs to help get things updated.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I should advocate this on Twitter then.
Yeah, and a general thing is in all the DSC resource kit, if there are members in the community that like to discuss issues, and if they don't like to code but have the knowledge, they are more than welcome to discuss issues or discuss on pull requests. I don't have the knowledge every time to decide which way is better to go. So I need the help from the community to decide. So if anyone wanna jump in on PRs and issues, just comment away. Anything is better than nothing. So I just wanna raise that. So
excellent.
I like the help.
I will submit that on Twitter as well. I know we've only got 9 people on this call, but Twitter will attract a bigger audience. Yeah. And actually, a couple of those items are tagged for me, so I should go ahead and act on them. Maybe we can drop it to 37 at least. So similar to this, there was one topic I wanted to bring up. It's something that we talked about a little bit internally. I haven't had a chance to propose this to the community at large yet. So if you look at what the open source PowerShell project has been working on in terms of telemetry, they have a very open telemetry platform where they have like an opt-in model. I think it might be opt-in. I don't remember the details of how it works, so I shouldn't speculate. But you can actually go out to Power BI and take a look at the data from the telemetry for like it's a time span like the last 30 days or something, but it's all very, very transparent to the communities. People can clearly see that nothing is being collected that's private information. But of course, the intent for the PowerShell team is they just want to know like what areas are people using the most so they can focus their engineering efforts on making key improvements. We don't have anything like that for DSC. DSC has no telemetry built in. And it would actually be quite nice for the engineering team to have a bit more insight into how people are using DSC. Of course, for Azure, like running the service, looking at how extension is being used. There are telemetry capabilities and some of those things. Again, it's nothing private. It's more just like how are these features being used. But for DSC that's not in Azure, we just have no telemetry at all. So one of the things we were considering would be to work with the community to build some publicly transparent telemetry into the XPS desired state configuration module. I'm not sure exactly what it would look like yet. What I'm thinking is I need to just write up a very general RFC, request for comments, and use the PowerShell RFC repo as a way, and then Twitter about it, and give at least a couple of months for the community to think about it and interact in this forum, things like that. And the things we'd be looking at are across those resources. Are they not just are they being downloaded? Because from looking at the PowerShell gallery, we can see that it's very active. What we don't know is what happens after that gets downloaded. Which modules are actually being used? Are there XPS desired state configuration resources that we should prioritize for updating the repos that we maintain? Just any information about that at all would be really nice. And if you have a gut reaction to this, I would love to hear it. If you want to think about it, if you want to help me with the RFC, anything in that regard, I really think that this should be a transparent thing. And if the community decides that this is no good because of privacy or anything like that, then we can just not do it. I just wanted to put it out there for discussion and see if there was any thoughts before even writing the RFC.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Definitely.
Yeah. Would you thinking you'd do that as part of the resource usage or done in the LCM somehow?
Well, we can't really do it in the LCM because we would have to release a new feature, and to be effective, we would have to go back and update 2008 R2 forward, and that would be a real headache, a real uphill battle. So
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, so if we did,
because if you could make a general module or something that you could include, because we were always talking about some of those generic functionality, that things like the error handling, exception handling. If we could do something like that to add in, add into any resource module, that might be quite a good way of doing it.
That'd be interesting. So have like a module that can be cloned into the other modules that would have a bunch of helper functions maybe, and that way anybody could gather telemetry. Like if for me, it'd be update services DSC, I could actually see if people are using it or not. That would actually be great. I hadn't thought about it that way.
We are looking at using. We were talking about creating a repo called the DSC Resource template. So that where we would have the common functions and so on.
Yeah.
This might be not the best place for it. What you're talking about, but
that would be really interesting. And then just during the build of the resource, it would just clone the latest version of that module over, run the tests, and then just you wouldn't have to maintain it on a per module level. Like the community would kind of co-own it and just make it extensible across modules. That's really attractive.
Yeah, because I could definitely see myself, networking DSC and computer management DSC. There's a lot of outstanding stuff in those, and seeing where the biggest focus would be pretty helpful.
Well, that's really good food for thought. I need to check in with the PowerShell team again. One of the things I have to recall is the model they use for the data. I can't remember how the opt-in, opt-out type stuff works, and then where the data goes. I know that they said, it was visible to the community for a certain period of time. So I just need to go back and revisit some of those topics. But I'll kind of skeleton out an RFC, and maybe I'll just stage it in a repo in my own account, and we can look at it again next month. And if it looks like I'm on the right track, then we can put it in the PowerShell RFC repo, possibly a month from now.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I can really see the value. I think there'll be a lot of benefit to it. Although the customers that I tend to deal with and I tend to deploy DSC resources out to, they get quite funny about any kind. You mentioned telemetry and their backs go up. So we just got to be very careful about that and make sure that everything's obviously very clearly defined. and also if it is kind of community based and people are going to be able to put edits into these things, we've just got to be super careful that someone doesn't either intentionally or unintentionally disable the opt-out functionality.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. The one nice thing about it all just being PowerShell is anybody who downloads it can see exactly what's going on. They could see exactly what's being collected and how it's being sent. So if there were any concerns, it'd be very easy to escalate them.
Yeah, and if they were that upset, they could then just strip that code straight out themselves.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not going to collect telemetry, obviously. If it's in a private network that has no internet access, it'll, even if you didn't opt out or opt in, it would just have no way to send it. But and that probably would be the first part of the module is does it even look like it's possible before trying to send anything? So we can look at it. I think before we try to design it, we could probably just have a bunch of speculation on how it could work, and then we'll see what the general consensus is. Cool. Thank you for that feedback. I will keep that on my plate. I guess the next thing would be, is there anybody who joined the call because they're working on a new module and would like to open discussion for feedback or have any questions or questions about DSC in general? Okay. If not, in general, that will wrap up this week's call, unless I'll open the floor one more time. If there are any subjects that didn't get covered for this call that you would like to discuss, then you're absolutely welcome to. All right. If that's the case, then I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Thank you for everybody who listened to the recording.